Hello everybody, welcome back to the Mermaids Cave. I'm Leslie Levison and we are on a dazzling crazy quilt adventure together. Today we're going to be doing yo-yos. These are yo-yos done in different sizes, different types of different fabrics, all cottons for me. And this is a crazy quilt piece that I'm working on now. These I have not added anything into the middle yet, so they're empty. In this example, I have some yo-yos that I've added buttons to. So I've just sewn the button. These are shank buttons, so I've just sewn the buttons into the middle of the yo-yo. And then on this yo-yo here, it's a very small one, I've added some bugle beads, and I've also added some beads directly on the yo-yo, which gave it a little bit of a flare. Okay, if you're a quilter, you may be familiar with yo-yo quilts from the 1930s. This is an old quilt that was gifted to me by Karen Birkenfeld. May she rest in peace. And it's all these funky 1930s fabrics. They're kind of coarse. And I once asked a friend of mine, my friend Diane, I said, if I ever say I'm going to make more than 5 yo-yos at a time, tell me, stop right there. But actually, once I started making them, I found that I really did enjoy making them. So I take that back. Now, to make a yo-yo, I've made this little visual for you, if you will. You can use a template like this to trace your circles. This is the big one over here. I don't remember where I got this. I don't know if this was from a quilting show or a scrapbook show or whatever. If you don't have a handy little template like that, you can use lids. So this is Duncan Hines frosting lid, Cherry Garcia, individual portion, any little plastic lid, or you can just take a compass and make your own size template out of cardboard or quilter's plastic, template plastic. I found that what I like, the size that I like the most is the one made from a 3-inch circle. So this one is a 3-inch circle, and this is what you end up with. Okay. This is a larger circle, and you end up with this one, and this one has a sequin and a flower sequin in the middle. This is, let's see, how big is this one? This circle is 2.5 inches, and you yield a 1-inch yo-yo. And this one also has some beads in it. I put in the middle there. You can see that. Little bugle beads with a seed bead on top. Oops. This is 2 inches, and this yields a little over between 3/4 and 7/8 inch yo-yo. Okay. This one I put a little button in, you can see, and you can put many other things. You could put a rhinestone, you could sequins, you could put a pom-pom, you can sew right through a pom-pom. So let me show you how this is done. I'm going to take my circle, and I'm just going to, with a regular sewing needle and sewing thread, just turn the edges over and stitch along, doing a running stitch. Turn the edges under, and I'm just going to stitch all the way around. When I used to go to quilt shows all the time, I lived in New York, and there were a lot of quilt shows all the time. There was a woman who used to show up at all the shows on Long Island and in the city and up at Somers, New York, the Northern Star Quilters Guild show that they would put on every year. And all of her outfits, she was this very elegant lady, and all of her outfits were made completely of yo-yos. I think she, like she didn't just sit and make them all herself. She had somebody making them for her or with her. But I don't remember what her name was. I don't know that I even ever knew her name. She was just the yo-yo lady. So I don't think I would make like an entire outfit out of yo-yos, but you could certainly decorate a top with some yo-yos to match a skirt, if you make your own clothes, or you could do a little vest kind of thing made out of yo-yos. Other than that, I think it would get a little much, little too much to do. So I'm still almost done. I'm going around the edge just with a running stitch. I'm just folding over the edge. Now, I guess you could do it without folding the edge over, but then you're going to have a rough edge. If you're using a fabric that doesn't fray, for example, if you were going to do something more like a primitive petty quilt type look, and you did it all in felt, then you wouldn't have to turn the edges over. So now I've got my edge turned over, and I'm just going to cut that thread. Sorry, went out of focus there. So you can see that the edge is turned over here. Okay, now the next step is you can use the same thread. Actually, I'm going to use a dark thread just so you can see what I'm doing. Hope everyone had a pleasant holiday, whatever you celebrate. I had 8 days of matzah and some amazing seders, two amazing seders, and lots of matzah brei and good chocolate, good stuff. Okay, so now I've got my circle with the edge turned over. So now I'm going to do a running stitch. And I've made, just to note, I've made a knot at the other end of my thread. And you might want to make a big ugly knot so that it doesn't slip through the fabric. Okay. So now I'm trying to do it as evenly as possible, a nice little running stitch. Like so. And I'm leaving the tail. I'm not going to pull it all the way through. I'm going to leave this tail hanging. And that's going to make it easier to pull it tight when I'm all done, when I go all the way around the circle. So again, I'm just going around the edge, right close to the edge. Yo-yo quilts, I think, were Depression era quilts. They were really made from scraps, dress scraps or any kind of clothing scraps. And then the yo-yos themselves were then stitched together to form a coverlet. Now this wouldn't be a warm quilt. This would have been meant to be used as like a summer coverlet in a cabin. This is something you could do with children, as long as they have the dexterity and the patience to do the initial turnover, or you could do the initial turnover and then just let them do the gathering. Okay, so I'm almost back to where I started. And I'm going to just bring that last piece of thread through. And I get this a little closer for you. Okay, so now this is the magical part. I'm going to take my two threads from the tail that I started with, and then the piece that I ended up with, and I'm going to pull in the opposite direction of which way the thread was, and that makes a yo-yo. Okay, so now I've got to kind of smooth it out. And then I'm going to tie those two threads together. I usually make 3 knots. I tie it together 3 times so it's nice and secure. It looks like a little shower cap, somebody said, or that's 2 knots, and here's 3 knots. Okay. And now I'm just going to cut the thread off, put my needle back, and going to just kind of pull this out from the sides to get it into a circle. Now you could also use the same technique to make little buds. So if you put stuffing in here and then pulled it, it would puff up like that, and then you'd make it smaller though, of course, and then put flower petals around it. And like I said, you can fill this with a button or a sequin or pom-poms or beads, whatever your imagination or your stash will allow you to do. So that's it for yo-yos. Let's go back to my piece with all the yo-yos on it. So you could overlap them. This is supposed to look like, I don't know, sea urchins or some kind of undersea growth, rocks, whatever you want it to be. That's it for this time. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions about yo-yos, or if you've done some yo-yos, please leave me a picture or a comment. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. So bye-bye from the Mermaid's Cave.